Most cassette decks were built to play tapes. This one was built to make masters. And I know that sounds strange now because we normally remember cassette as the format of mixtapes or car stereos and Walkmans. But cassette had a different life, a working life. Studios used it. Radio stations used it. Churches and schools used it. Even production houses used it. And if cassette was how your audio was going to leave the building, you needed a machine that took the format seriously. This is the Tascam 122. It's a professional rack mount cassette deck. And now that mine is finally working again, we're going to look at why this machine mattered, what made it different from a normal home cassette deck, and whether it still makes sense today. And spoiler alert, it does. But it's still cassette. So everybody keep both feet on the floor. Today we're looking at the original Tascam 122, not the Mark II, not the Mark III. This is the first version, and that makes it especially interesting because it has that early professional cassette deck personality. It's practical, it's mechanical, it's a little industrial, and it has some features that make you realize that cassette was not always treated like a cheap throwaway format. If you've been following this channel, this deck has already had its repair drama. I replaced an op amp, replaced some bad capacitors, and brought it back from a nice rack-mounted decoration to actual working cassette machine. Today is the payoff. We're going to use it. Now, most people remember cassette as a consumer format, and that makes sense. It was everywhere. It was in cars and boom boxes and Walkmans and home stereos. I mean, everybody had shoe boxes full of tapes with handwriting that got worse as the decade went on. But that same convenience is exactly why cassette also became useful in professional and semi-professional environments. It was small, it was cheap, it was easy to duplicate, and it was easy to hand to somebody. Before emailing an audio file, before cloud storage, and before every phone was secretly a production studio, cassette was one of the easiest ways to move sound from one person to another. So if you were making a reference copy, a radio spot, a church recording, a training tape, or maybe even a client demo, cassette, it made sense. But you did not want to make that cassette on junk. And that's where a deck like this one comes in. The Tascam 122 is not trying to be a shiny living room stereo component. It's a tool. This was built to live with other production gear. Mixers and processors, tape machines, duplicators, the kind of stuff that was meant to be operated, not admired from across the room while sitting next to a fern. And the controls reflect that. You've got proper meters, you've got real input controls, tape and source monitoring, noise reduction options, dual speed operation, and most importantly, a 3-head design. A lot of basic cassette decks use a combined record and playback head, and that works fine. But on a 3-head deck, the jobs are separated. You have an erase head, a record head, and a playback head. That means while you're recording, you can listen to what is actually being recorded onto the tape just a fraction of a second later. Not just the signal going in, the actual tape. And that is a big deal because with cassette, the source and the tape are not always the same thing. The tape has its own limits. The level matters. The tape formulation matters. The noise reduction matters. The alignment matters. The condition of the deck matters. So being able to switch between the incoming source and the recorded tape lets you hear what is actually happening. That turns recording from, man, I hope that worked, into I can actually check this while it's happening. And for production work, that matters. This deck also just feels like it was made for work. All of the buttons feel deliberate. The meters are easy to read. The layout's not trying to be cute. Everything feels like it was designed for somebody who might use this machine all day. And that's one of the things I love about older professional gear. It usually doesn't care if you think it's pretty. It cares if it does the job. And this does have a certain kind of no-nonsense charm. It's not flashy, it's not delicate. It looks like you'd smoke a cigarette with you outside the radio station and then go back in for another shift. Before we record with this thing, here's the quick repair recap, no pun intended. When I got into this deck, it had audio problems. I ended up replacing an op amp and some bad capacitors, and luckily that brought it back to life. And that's why this episode is fun. The repair got the machine working, but this episode answers the bigger question. Why was it worth fixing? Because not every old cassette deck needs a documentary. Some just need a respectful retirement and maybe a shelf. But this one has a real place in the story of working audio. So now that it's alive again, let's actually use it. Oh, hey, before we start recording, if you're into old studio gear and tape machines, forgotten formats, and electronics that weigh more than modern furniture, hit like and subscribe. New episodes drop every Wednesday at 2 Central, and it really does help the channel. It tells YouTube there are still people who want to watch a grown man get excited about a cassette deck, which is either a beautiful thing or a cry for help. Either way, I appreciate it. Now for the demo, I'm going to feed the Tascam a clean source. I don't want to start with something messy and then pretend the cassette deck's doing miracles. The point is to give the machine a fair test. So I'm going to send it a good signal. I'm going to use my Auralic LP100 as a DAC, output a digital file to this unit so it's nice and clean. We'll set our levels, we'll record to tape, and then we'll compare the source to what comes back off of the cassette. Now, because this is a 3-head deck, we can monitor the tape while it's recording. And that's where this machine really starts to feel, less like nostalgia and more like a piece of production equipment. I'm going to be capturing the output with my Motu M6, and I'm going to be recording that at 48 kilohertz and 16 bits, so CD quality, which should be fine. All right, so with a cassette, levels matter. You want enough signal to stay above the noise floor, but you don't want to hit the tape so hard that everything gets really crunchy in a bad way. There's a such thing as good tape saturation. And then there's, the cassette being pushed way too hard. So we're going to aim for the first one. Now the meters on this deck feel very hands-on. Modern software meters are a lot more precise, but there's something really satisfying about watching actual VU meters move while the tape rolls. Now, this is part of the appeal of physical media. You're not just looking at a file, you're actually watching a machine do some work. So what we're going to do is go ahead and get this set up to record. We'll go ahead and put the tape in. Then we're going to get the machine recording. Now, we'll go ahead and start the file here. And so what we're listening to now is the source. And I can switch between the source and the tape. Source is the signal going into the deck. Tape is actually what's being recorded. Now the tape I'm using is a RTM C60, normal bias. That's recording the master. It's not sponsored, although it could be if they wanted to. I'd be happy to let them sponsor an episode or two. So we've got tape, which is actually what's being recorded from the tape. We can actually hear it in real time. Now there's a tiny delay because the tape physically moves from the record head to the playback head. And that little delay is proof that you're hearing the cassette itself. And that's where you can judge what the machine and the tape are really doing. Is the top end still there? Is the low end holding together? Are the levels clean? Is the noise reduction behaving? Does it still sound like the source, or has cassette put its little fingerprint on everything? Now, the cassette always leaves a fingerprint, and that's not necessarily bad. That's part of the format. The goal is not to make the cassette invisible, it's to make it behave itself. So now we're going to rewind and hear what we actually got. And I won't talk in this part of it, so you can actually hear what we're talking about here. This is actually what I really like about this deck. It still sounds like a cassette, but it sounds controlled. Now we're using a normal bias, ferrite cassette tape because I didn't want to use the best thing in the world. I want to see what it sounds like on a run-of-the-mill cassette, although this is a really, really good one. Now, with this recording, it doesn't feel like the format's falling apart. You can hear the limits, but you can also hear the engineering. And that's the sweet spot for vintage gear. The character is still there, but it's not chaos. So what we're going to do next is we're going to talk about the dual speed recording on this. And we'll do a longer demo of both of the speeds on the recording when we finish up. We'll talk about it first, and then we'll pause and listen to just the music from both of them. Now, one of the most cool features on this original 122 is that it can run at normal cassette speed or double speed. Normal cassettes are 1 7/8 inches per second, and double speed is 3 3/4 inches per second. That means the tape moves past the heads twice as fast. And as you know, with tape, speed matters. In general, faster tape speed can improve the recording performance because the audio is spread more across the tape. But the trade-off is kind of obvious. You use tape twice as fast. So your 60-minute cassette becomes a 30-minute cassette. Vintage technology is great at giving you an improvement and then immediately sending you the invoice. So first, I'm going to record a short sample at normal speed, and then we're going to do the same thing at high speed, and then we'll listen to both of them. And we're going to see whether the difference fully survives the YouTube compression or not. And, that's something to keep in mind. YouTube has a way of chewing up the, subtle audio differences, but in the room, we'll see what it sounds like, and we'll let you be a judge of it too. There is one more capability on this deck that I want to mention, but we're not going to go all the way into it today. This deck was designed to work with external DBX noise reduction equipment. And I do have DBX gear that can work with it, but that deserves its own episode because DBX isn't just turn it on and magically everything gets better. It needs to be set up properly, it needs to be used correctly, and it deserves a real comparison. Dolby, DBX, no noise reduction, normal speed, high speed, different tape types, and all of that can get deep very quickly. And around here, deep very quickly is usually how episodes get born. So today we're going to keep the focus on the Tascam 122 itself. But yes, the DBX side of this machine is coming back because that's a rabbit hole with a rack mount faceplate. The reason this machine mattered is simple. Cassette was everywhere, and when a format is everywhere, people find serious uses for it. It doesn't mean it was the best format, it means it was the useful format. Now, a studio might use cassettes for reference copies. A radio station might use it for spots or production audio. A church might use it for sermon tapes. A school might use it for training or educational material. Or a client might need a copy they could play in the car. Cassette was the common language, and if you had to speak that language professionally, you wanted a machine that spoke it clearly, and that is the Tascam 122. So, what's my verdict? Well, the Tascam 122 does not make cassette perfect. There's nothing that does. Cassette is narrow tape moving at a slow speed inside a tiny plastic shell, so there are limits. Tape quality matters, and deck condition matters. The alignment of the heads matters, noise reduction, and maintenance. Vintage gear is not going to be plug and play forever. It's more like plug and pray and then replace capacitors. But when this deck is working properly, it shows how good cassette could be when the format was treated seriously. Not perfectly, seriously. And to me, that's the key. This machine does not turn cassette into reel-to-reel. It doesn't make cassette modern. It doesn't erase the compromises. It just handles those compromises with more control, better monitoring, and a workflow that made sense for real production work. And that's why I like it. Oh, now the Tascam 122, it sits in a really interesting place. It uses a format that almost everybody recognizes, but it approaches that format like a professional tool, and that's the charm. It's familiar and it's serious at the same time. It's a cassette deck with a real job, and honestly, those are some of my favorite pieces of vintage gear. Not the fanciest, not always the most expensive, but the things that were built to solve a real problem. People really needed to make good cassette recordings, and Tascam, they built a machine for that job. And decades later, it is still a fascinating piece of gear. Now, for Studio Access and After Hours members, I'll do some extra listening samples and a little more behind the scenes on the setup and recording tests. And when we do the DBX follow-up, that will probably get especially nerdy, which around here is not a warning, that's the whole point. So, that is the Tascam 122, a professional cassette deck from a time when cassette was not just a nostalgia format. It was a working format. And if you had to make a cassette that mattered, this is the kind of machine you wanted on the rack. If you enjoyed this one, hit like, subscribe, and check out the earlier repair video where this deck got brought back to life. And if you want more deep dives into tape machines, forgotten formats, studio gear, old computers, and the technology that refuses to stay dead, you're in the right place. I'm Chad with Vintage Electronics Channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.